Hey there, Blockhead Traders. Here at Blockhead Traders, I must inform you that we are not financial professionals. Nothing we say should be considered financial advice. We offer our own thoughts and opinions to you, the viewer. We expect you to take these opinions from your own financial conclusions and make your own financial decisions. This is Blockhead Traders for the week of September 7th, 2025. And in this week's episode, I'm joined by fellow Blockhead Trader Viper XL007, and we are going to take a look at a fireside chat, basically, and ask the question, is it all in your head? And kind of come up with a analogy here where, if you don't have a map, you're bound to get lost. And we'll touch on what some of that stems from in this episode, so stay tuned. But before we hop to that, I want to give a shout out to our Discord, link in the description below. You can hop in there, say hello to myself, Viper, some of the other Blockhead traders. Love to hear what you're trading, love to hear what type of content you want to hear about. Also, you'll find a link to thetagang.com/Sprocket888, where I post each and every one of my equity trades, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Last, this is available in an audio-only format wherever you get your podcasts. So look us up, subscribe, and if you can't find it there, let us know and we will get it there. But let's hop to this week's content. Viper, I wanted to take a time here to do one of these fireside chat episodes where we just kind of have a topic and we discuss it a little bit. And I know that you recently have been doing different daily trades and really kind of reading some books, actually. I think last time we talked, you had two books in particular you were looking at, and I feel like they couldn't be more opposite of each other when you described them. One was a lot more of a technical, fundamental, hard science type analysis of markets. And the other one, which is the one I think we'll touch on today in our Fireside Chat episode, was a little bit more of a soft side skills or kind of mental games or trading psychology, as you would. And I think it was called Trading in the Zone, if I'm not mistaken. Was that the name of the title?
Correct. That is the name of the title. And it's in audio form on Spotify, included with premium subscription. Not a plug for Spotify, but that's a pretty convenient way to access it.
We will have to get Spotify to sponsor us. But when you read the description to me, I really kind of was like, that's kind of a book I think I would like, because I am very much of the belief that a lot of people's successes and failures come from where your headspace is at. And I know we've done several episodes in our back catalog. You can look through trading psychology and stuff like that on where I draw parallels to what I feel is the most difficult part of trading. It's not anything that you learn from reading the chart or fundamentals or what does this thing mean or what does this thing, but really how trading can really mess with your mind. And I was really, really intrigued by the book as you kind of described it. So I said, well, I'm a Spotify subscriber. I'll look it up. And so I have not finished the book. Don't worry, you're allowed to spoil it in part of this episode. But I'm probably about halfway through it. And I have to say, it does seem to live up to the billing that you kind of gave it, as really has nothing to do with your fundamental understanding of the market. And I think really anybody can listen to this thing. And you probably want to listen to it more than once. I will probably find myself looping back to some of the chapters to kind of go through it again, because I think a lot of the analogies that are raised in there are very, very relevant. And coming from the years that I've been doing this and focusing in on what makes me successful, where do I fall down, there's actually a lot of things that book kind of reaffirms for me. So, Viper, did you finish the book? And I guess, how did it hit you? I know you were really kind of almost a love-hate, like you really love the content, but you really felt that he was kind of reaching out and slapping you in the face sometimes.
Yeah. And actually, I did finish it, and I just finished it today, this afternoon. And I agree. I think it is extremely accessible. And I already, before I even finished this reading or listen through, I definitely already concluded I'm going to fire it back up and do this again because I got tons out of it as is part of what I want to unpack here. But there's just so many more little nuances that are good to hear again, because it is the kind of advice that even if you listen through it the one time and it all makes sense, if you're experiencing this emotional struggle, and even if you're not, it's still a good reminder of what's out there and how intentional you need to be in your headspace and in your mindset, to get over that, because it is a very unnatural thing to get over given all other experiences. So the only caveat I would I was thinking about, I would probably put is I don't think it'll mean as much to people until they're at the point in their trade journey where they are in the market, they are making trades, and they are actively feeling that emotional struggle organically. I don't know. I mean, that's also just me projecting my experience. I would like to think that some of these concepts hit home a lot harder when you're going through it, which is why, for me personally, it's like this. This is. I feel like I'm at the perfect point, and not everybody needs to get to where I am. Not everybody needs to have lost. As had the experience that I've had to get to this point. But because I am, and I've said multiple times on the show here that I struggle with the emotions involved, that like I mean, we have so many episodes, we go back and look how many edges I've identified. Tons of edges. I mean, and what I've learned is edges are not complicated to come across. And what I've consistently struggled with is the emotional piece of it, and specifically the execution of an edge. So coming into this book, it's just kind of like, this is the final piece that I've spent so much time on the rest of the puzzle. I've not only put it together, I've repainted it. I've put shellac finish on it. Like, I've done everything to the other piece of the puzzle, and I've never addressed this missing piece. And so I feel like I've taken a lot of really good lessons out of it because of that. And like you said, the beginning first few chapters, I mean, it was just everything he said, everything that was written about what traders should not do or what traders experience, about what, let me be even more specific, about what not consistently profitable traders experience. It was just a constant, just slap in the face. Not even, that's too aggressive. It was just a constant like identification of like, that's me. That's exactly me. That's exactly me. And I think one of my first big aha moments, and I'm going to do this little experiment here with Sprocket. So by all means, listening, watching, wherever you are, just play along in your head a little bit. And obviously, like, I mean, you already know where I'm headed with this, Sprocket, but it's not a trick question. Don't try to outsmart the question. Like, just honestly answer it. So one of the big illustrations that really started to land home for me was, first of all, was this statement of casinos, and casinos make their business off of casinos are incredibly profitable, first and foremost, and yet they make their business, they make their money off of a series of random chance games. And how could that possibly be? They've accounted for the biggest of big jackpot wins, and they pay that out willingly and profitably. And how can that be if the game is a game of chance? And so that really, just that analogy alone really got me thinking, like, that's right. I mean, obviously there's all sorts of things you can get into with like slot machines, and if it's programmed a certain way, and all that's important stuff to think about and question. But I mean, like, if we're just talking like blackjack or, you know, things like that, that the casino has identified their edge, and their edge is to pick games in a way that gives them, I think it's something small. It's like a 3 or 4% edge in their favor. And so the way they're so profitable is they have an edge and they show up to every single game. Anytime somebody puts money down, they're there taking the counter. They're there taking the counter, and it's a game of large numbers. So the illustration that was used that really hit home for me was, all right, so I'll ask you this, Sprocket. You have $100 in your hand. And I come up to you with a coin and I say, let's start flipping this coin. No strings attached. I flip the coin, you call it correct, and whatever you bet, I will pay you double, and that's the payout. It's a 2-to-1. It's a 2-to-1 game. Whatever you bet, if you called it right, you get paid double. And we're just going to sit here and flip coins. There's no maximum or minimum. We're going to do it as long as you want. What is your general strategy approaching that situation? Like, is it betting it all the first time because you know what's going to happen? How would you approach that from a either risk management or risk on? How would you approach that situation?
For me personally, I would probably divide up to that money that I had, that $100, probably in dollar increments, and I'd probably bet $1 each time and play the game X number of times until I reached a targeted return of, say, double my money or 50%, 50% to 100% my money, because it's paying out 2-to-1, which means every time the coin flips, I might double my money, but it's going to be a 50-50 each time. So it should end up, I should never lose more than what I bet. And as long as I keep that in the dollars, it should kind of flip me up to kind of a profitable area at some point.
Yeah. And I think most people listening, like doing that experiment yourself, like that's a reasonable approach. And I think a lot of people, the most aggressive I've heard when I've asked people that, the most aggressive was a little aggressive, but it was like 50, they're going to put $50 on the line and, essentially get 2 tries at it. A little aggressive, but the point is, universally, everybody can approach a coin flip and everybody can understand that when that coin's in the air and it's flipping, there is no question that nobody knows what's about to land. And that thinking through that and now tying that to the market was really big to me, because the point that's made in the book, much more elegantly than we're doing here, is that every single trade is always that same unknown, and that the most profitable traders in all of time, and the most consistently profitable, they accept and they embrace that unknown. That when they put on a trade, they have zero idea what's going to actually happen next. There is a random chance at all times of what happens next. And I mean, I think that's the power in the book, is that it's not, these aren't major revelations, but it's also forcing you to think through what's being said, and in a framework that I found super helpful. Like this exact example, like so many times in various chat circles and things, everybody's like, this whole thing's, it's all a chance. It's all gambling. You never know what's going to happen. And people chirp back and be like, well, but I have this certain strategy, which and we get stuck in that definitive no, don't know frame of mind, that we completely gloss over the critical meat in the middle, which is probabilistic thinking, and accepting that you don't know. And the reason you don't care that you don't know is because you have that edge. You're that casino where, as long as you keep showing up and executing, you don't care because you have the probabilistic edge. So I think that was one of my first major breakthrough moments, is just continually letting that rattle around and think that through.
Yeah, Viper, I agree. That while I did kind of appreciate that analogy and that parallelism that they put in there, kind of along those lines, the thing that really kind of jumped out and struck me was a lot like that, where you have a strategy, You know it has some sort of edge, and the real difference is sticking with it and doing it again and again and again and again and again. And that's actually the part that I really liked some of the discussion in the book earlier on, where they talked about why is that so difficult for people. And he really talked about how one of the things about the market is it is entirely limitless. Like there is nothing but a sea of information and buyers and sellers, and there is nothing that says the market will do this or the market will do this under these conditions. There is a probability of what it might do based on historical, based on so many things. But if you just look at the whole thing, there are absolutely no rules of the road. There's nothing in there that tells the traders to do this or do that. It is 100% paint your own picture, which a lot of people, how many times were you growing up where you're like, I just wish there was no rules, or things like that. And then you get into that environment and it really can be paralyzing. One, from choice, and two, because you can do anything. It's like a kid in a candy store that says, yep, have fun, and they're going to probably get a bellyache because there's not the self-control or the self-discipline to, ease back on this or watch this or watch that. And I think that's one of the things that really stood out to me was just that why I personally think that I have been successful is exactly that. I have found a plan and I have the discipline to stick to that plan. And you can go back in my episodes, and this is my internet archive of truth that has been out there for the years that I've been recording this. There's periods of my trading where my profitability got all scattered all over the place. The volatility of my profits was way up, way down, way up, way down. And every time that happened, I had deviated from the edge, if you would, of the strategy. And then I go back to that, and it was very reaffirming. Like, okay, I get it. I had the self-control and the self-discipline to stick to something, and it did bear fruit. And that was a real big standout for me, as far as kind of one of the affirmations that I had.
Yeah, that you touched on it there. The endless stream, and I believe in the book it's referred to as a stream of opportunity, or opportunity flow, was another big one for me, because one of the things that I've struggled with consistently in all the edges I've created or observed or learned from, there was always this feeling of great, this edge works, and therefore I need to be careful and make sure that I catch the next time this edge condition appears. And it was that sense of FOMO of the only way, and putting undue pressure on myself of the only way this is going to work is if I'm paying attention and I catch this, and it's only because I have no idea how many times it's going to happen, so I need to catch this. And that puts all this pressure, and it almost makes you start to hallucinate, because then you don't have the confidence in the plan, or you're trying to force the trade because there's this fear of missing out on it. And the reality is that, as the book paints, it's the market is an endless stream. It's an endless river. There is no start. There is no end. It is just constantly flowing, and you decide when you're going to participate and when you're going to not. And when you decide to participate, you go into it with a clean, calm mind of, I am here for one purpose, and that is to place a bet on this edge that I have whenever I see it appear, and I'm willing to pay X amount of dollars to see it, to see what happens with it, not to see it work, not to see it fail. I'm here to just find out. And that creates this sense of confidence, sense of calm, no sense of pressure, no sense of fear, which is just going to get in the way of all sorts of things. So that was certainly something that I identified with as well.
Yeah, actually, right along those lines, Viper is one of the parts of the book that I think was kind of challenging to me, and I really still don't know how to take it. So the whole thing is, I'm super chill and super calm on all of my trades now, to the point of where I almost was hearing in this book that, hey, dummy, you shouldn't be like you're in the bucket of you have to be right, because that's one of the things he talks about is these traders have to be right, they have to be right, they have to be right. And well, I don't personally feel I need to be right. One of the things with my trades is I'll take assignment and I'll hold that and then I'll sell the opposite thing against it. And I'm cool with that. And I start wondering, hey, it was a lot easier when I had a hey, I'm not going to take this into assignment. I'm going to cut at this loss or something like that. But then I started being okay with assignment and really started incorporating that into my trades. And I question, is that me being foolish, or is that really me just accepting the risk that's coming with it and accepting the outcome? And I don't know the answer to that, but where I'm going with that is that me subconsciously wanting to be right, that I take assignment and then I wheel, and I only wheel when I can do it for a profit. Eventually that the stock comes back into where I can close it out for a win, and I book a whole lot of wins. And I feel like if you look at my theta gang and you look at my green, you will find that every trade is green except for a small chunk that's very, very red at the bottom, but those are all still in progress. And I feel like I keep them going until I make them green through the methodology that I have. But I was very challenged in this book to say, is that me being foolish, or is that really my strategy? And I don't have an answer for that. I'm kind of still conflicted about it.
Yeah, I mean, and not nearly to. So I think you definitely have that. You've definitely identified a key thing to consider, and I think this might be yet to come for where you're at in the book. But suffice it to say, where you're headed, if you haven't heard it yet, that's actually perfect. That level of introspective thinking, and that's talked about in the book, as far as nobody should go into this and be like, I'm going to get this right. Now I understand it. Now I'm just going to do it right. What's so hard? There's a huge emphasis on the process of growing and sharpening in all of these areas. And one of those areas is exactly what you're doing, which is that calm, collected, introspective thinking, and analyzing your own behavior, and not judging yourself, but just thinking through where your head's at. And maybe it's perfectly fine. Maybe it's also something that is indicative, like you said. So I know for me, one of the things that kept tripping me up, which is not the same situation as what you're describing, but is very relatable, I think, to anybody new into the market, is I kept struggling with this, and it was like an elephant in the room that, again, that whole missing piece element to it, where I was struggling because even though I had all of these edge cases identified, I could reach in a bag, and I still can right now. I can reach in and pull you out an edge of like, here's something that works really good. Here's something that works really good. And that's cool. I'm glad I have all of those. I still stand behind all of them. I still use a lot of them, though I am trying to focus a little bit more. But where I would struggle is what I didn't realize I was subconsciously doing is, as soon as I opened a trade with an edge, subconsciously I was like, okay, this is going to work. That's thought number one. That's a problem. Because let's say it was an edge that has a 60% win rate. I will calmly go into that first trade, and then subconsciously what I'm not realizing is my mind is going, I am in this trade. It's the first one. It's going to win. And I just need, as long as I see 2 or 3 wins, then we can hit a loss. I want to see progress. I want to see up movement, and then we can hit a loss. And it's that mindset of, yeah, but and yeah, it's got this edge, but I just need to see some wins first, and then yeah, sure, it's going to lose. It's got that edge, and that is it's just toxic the way that rattles around, because it's a coin flip. No matter what your edge is, every trade is a coin flip, and if you're not going into it instead of the mindset I just said, if you're going into it and just going, hey, I have this edge, I want to test it, and therefore I'm going to trade it 30 times. And you go into it with that mindset of every single one of these is going to be a coin flip. And the only way I can prove that it does what I think it does is to have the data set. That has been very enlightening. And like I said, it sounds simple. It sounds like, well, yeah, we talk about this all the time. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know if you felt that nuance to it, where I felt almost bad because I was like, yeah, this is stuff that we talk about all the time, but I don't know, just some way that, I don't know if it's the environment of the book, but something about it just makes you think about it from a different perspective. That's like, oh, no, that makes more sense.
Must be the author's voice or whoever the narration voice is. It just must sound better than your older brother saying something, because he can't possibly know what he's talking about.
It is. And I'm pretty sure, I need to go look, but I'm pretty sure I've listened to at least one or more fiction audiobooks from this narrator. So clearly I'm in a fantasy world as he's talking that it's just more approachable.
But I do think one of the things you said kind of early on, as you kind of called out, as it's going to hit a lot closer to home for those of you that actually been in the market and put something at risk. I really think that when the author kind of calls out some of these, you will be blind to certain things in the moment because of X, Y, Z is going to take over your thinking. When you listen to it, you're like, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. No way. I know. And it 100% will. I definitely can look back at some of the trades where I was making mistakes very, very early on, and some of the stuff he's like, yeah, you're not thinking about this. I'm like, I wasn't. And it definitely is true, where I was getting into my groove and I was putting large trades on, or this, that, and the other. And he kind of called out, it might be obvious. You might, yes, well, when I hit this, I will just stop. And then you get in that moment and you're like, yeah, but if I did that, then this is going to get locked in and I know it's going to turn around. It's going to turn around any moment now. And then you're like 10 moments later, well, it's still lower, but it's coming soon. It's coming soon.
It's a struggle, for sure. And then the other thing that is probably, I mean, I think it still makes sense to touch on it, but it definitely makes a lot more sense as you go through the book. And this is definitely some of what in the chapters you still have ahead. It's just, so the whole story, the whole plot of the book, and obviously don't hear us talking about it and be like, oh yeah, that all makes sense. Good enough. There's definitely every reason to go check it out. But the whole arc of the book is to unpack this emotional thinking, to unpack this mindset and state of mind, and the way that when you're in the moment, the way that that negative thoughts and uncertainty and doubt can completely disrupt a plan, and how important that focus is. He eventually gets to some more analogies of it, and he uses the example of a floor trader that will, when floor traders are starting out. So this guy, the author of the book, has extensive experience in floor trading and training floor traders and all that sort of stuff. And so as traders are training, and in their early days, he will have them only trade one options contract of an underlying, and with all the risk mitigation and position portfolio sizing that we talk about, but one contract. And then he equates that to trading that one contract is like, and so let's say it's a index futures contract or something like that. And trading that one contract is equivalent to a 100-foot wide bridge across a canyon. And there's no guardrails, but it's 100 feet wide. And so you're right down the middle of it with your one contract. And if you mess up a little bit or sway, side to side, 10, 20 feet, you still have buffer, and you can still work on your technique of walking down the middle of that bridge, versus some of the larger traders that he traded with on the floor. He was saying one of them would deal with, I think it was 1,000 T-bill futures contracts. That would be one trade, and I think that one position is it was something like $31,000 or $32,000 per tick on is what that trade represented. And so now that trader is the highest risk tightrope walker, where focus and mindset is everything, because the difference for the tightrope walker, so if you're just picturing the high wire act across a canyon, the difference between walking across that wire and splatting on the bottom of the canyon floor is one stray thought. It's one little tiny gust of wind where you didn't expect it or didn't feel it coming, or anything like that. And so it's all about focus to be able to get through that. And so then just equating between those two extremes, your trade journey is going to fall in one of those extremes, where the risk of falling into the canyon is always there and is acknowledged, but the risk in position sizing and portfolio exposure is something that you control as you go through this mental journey and focus on reflecting on your own experiences.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I also really kind of appreciated in the book where kind of the negative attitude begets negative results, and the positive attitude begets positive results. And in the back of my mind, he didn't call it out in the book, but there was a quote, I think it was by Henry Ford. I'm not sure who the quote was originally by, but it said, it doesn't really matter if you think you can or you think you can't. You're probably right. And I really think that that's very interesting and appropriate here, because I really think a lot of that headspace that you get in is kind of what starts to determine the results that you're going to see.
So for me personally, and I think for a lot of people, just in different ways, because the book covers such a wide range of the emotional impact. So that's to say that I don't expect everyone to get the same exact attachment or identification out of the book, but I think it's helpful to everybody. The thing that was also very affirming in it is what I've been doing as my daily trade. And this started as an edge. I talked about it on a previous episode. I don't know if we've fully broken it down or not. So maybe that'll be a future episode. But it attracted me because it was simple, dead simple. And I understand the mechanics of it. I understand the risk associated with it. And it's a daily trade. And what I understood the most was the entry condition, the mechanical path to success with it, and the loss scenarios with it. And so what attracted me to it was that uber mechanical nature of it. And the fact that the video that I had watched that called out this particular trade clearly stated, this is a daily trade. You just always take it every single day in this certain setup, not even setup, it's just a time of day thing. And it has a statistical probabilistic edge of winning. And so while I was, when I talked about it previously on the show, while I was going through all these different edges and stuff, I was like, in the back of my head, I was like, what would be nice is not thinking about something and just taking a mechanical trade and not thinking about it. And I already had my tracking dashboard set up, which made it super easy to track the success rate of this particular trade. So I was like, it started out certainly as an experiment, but also as a it would just be cool if this worked. And it's such little, relative to portfolio size, it's such little risk to take on. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do it in the back of my head. It's a mindless thing. Like literally every day, 3:30, an alarm goes off on my phone. I do not look at the market I look at the price of the SPY, and then I take the trade according to that. And it's that simple, so I don't have to be looking at things. I just need to get it in right before the bell closes. And so I just do that. I open up my phone, bing, 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 couple buttons, send it, and move on with my life. And we see what happens the next day. And so that was really affirming from the book, because at the end in chapter 11, I think it is, he lays out a very easy exercise for you to do now that you've taken in the entire book. And the spoiler alert is it is a very fundamental, mechanical, you need to do this 20 times. And so I am seeing the result of what the book is talking about. And I was doing it somewhat unknowingly, and proving it out in that it's all about that cranking the wheel and doing the same exact thing over and over again. And so the reason I chose this SPY daily trade is it's on the SPY, which means it can scale. I don't have to worry about options chain liquidity. I do not have the money to put up 1,000 contracts, but if I wanted to, it's there. And it would work all the same. So I'm excited to start. I mean, I'm at a point where I'm ready to start ramping that up a little bit. And so we'll see where that goes. But that was certainly I kept thinking about that trade strategy, and it fits to exactly what the book's talking about. So I'm working this in to all of my trading, though, to show up expecting the unexpected, being okay with the unexpected, being okay not knowing what's about to happen, because in trading circles, man, everybody's an expert on what's about to happen next. And that, I think, is the crux of it all, is you have to actively refuse that thinking that no, you do not. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen next. And if you're showing up in the market thinking you know exactly what's going to happen next, you're right. The market's going to take your money. That's what's going to happen next. So I'm working it into all of my different trade setups, and it is definitely helping with the mental aspect of it. Still work to go, but it's an important missing piece. I think I told Sprocket that it's the kind of piece that in hindsight, I'm going to be like, that was a critical moment. So hopefully you check it out and it strikes you in a similar way. Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. Like I said, included in your Spotify Premium. That's a super easy way to access it, listen to it on a commute, whatever. But it's a book, and I'm pretty sure it's available everywhere books are available. And we don't have a referral link.
Well, that brings us to the end of this week's episode. And one of the catchphrases that was from the book, Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas, that really sticks out, and I'll kind of leave it here, is the moment of Zen. Was in the book, he talks very frequently about having a mind like water, where your mind in the water can absorb any of the impact, any of the disturbances, and they ripple across there, and it just doesn't phase the water, the large body of water. And just being in that mental state where you are not phased by the dramatic turn of events and just anticipating the unanticipatable is really where you get into that mind like water state. And I can strongly attest to the benefits that you will see when you really kind of get in that state. And I do think the book does a way better job than Viper or I can articulate here about, why do people act the way they do? How do you push that off? How do you stuff that under? How do you get past that? Different techniques, different approaches, and it really all goes, in my opinion, to what we talk about all the time. Understand the mechanics, understand the underlying, why does your mind think this way? Why do you act this way? Why? And the more that you kind of dig into that, the more you can understand that pieces. And then the more that you understand it, the more that you are to be able to navigate around it and mitigate some of those things, because you're more aware. It's not this mysterious oogly boogly that comes out and derails your trading or derails your mental state. And so, like I said, I highly, highly recommend the book. I'm not all the way through it, but I speculate I still will recommend it once I finish it. Viper has finished it. He says it's good to go. So go out there, check it out. Check it out from your library. Listen to it on Spotify. I highly, highly recommend it just from a get your head straight, because that is, I talk to people and I do believe that is a strong component of totally wrecking and being discouraged and walking away thinking the market is rigged against you. You'll never be successful. You got to rely on somebody else. It's always someone else. So go for it. Look it up, listen to it. And while you're at it, get back out there in the market, trade objectively, have a mind like water, have fun, good luck, and remember, think outside the block.